Batman Superman World's Finest, issue 27. Mark Waid writing with Dan Mora and Travis Mercer on the art. So this is continuing this Imp story, which initially I wasn't looking forward to too much because the story in the annual or whatever it was that was setting it up wasn't that good. But luckily though, that was just because it was just nothing but imps. I really enjoyed the last issue. I think this one was another fun one, mainly because they're having fun with like, you know, the villainous imps like being in the fight. There's a lot more going on, and I'll admit it popped me immediately. The first page made me laugh, which was the Bat Imp, or Batmite, I should say, fantasizing that he's Batman, and it's done in the style of the opening of the animated series. It's perfect.
I think it is perfect, down to the fact that it says "I am the might."
That is funny.
That cracked me up. My problem is nothing else in this issue lives up to this page.
Okay, that's fair. I'll admit that. That's the best page.
But I'm not saying it's a bad issue, but nothing lives up to this page. You set expectations so high, opening with that, and then the rest of the issue is good. But you know, I'm disappointed because nothing can come close. It's just a little bit of a shame.
That's fair. I think what I liked about this issue is that obviously we've got some of the villains fighting with their imps against the other heroes. You know, Wonder Woman shows up. I think we see a couple others.
Yeah, and then you got Parasmite going around.
Yeah, I think what I liked about this is that the two main imps, right, which is Mixie and Batmite, split up. And Batmite tries to... he actually gets Robin out of the wall because they were left in two-dimensional space. But he ends up swapping with Robin, possibly unintentionally, it seemed like. And he ends up in two-dimensional space with Batman and Superman. So he ends up working with them, whilst Mixie is on the outside working with Robin. And Robin wants superpowers again, but he's like, nah, you couldn't handle it. We need someone else. And then, surprisingly, he goes to Jimmy, who's around reporting with Lois, and he's like, hey, you've had lots of weird transformations over the years, and they're all buried deep in there somewhere in your DNA and your memory. So I'm going to unleash them all. So we actually get an army of Jimmy Olsens in all of his various forms fighting the various imps.
Yeah, I'm partial to the Olsen Wolf.
I particularly enjoyed when he bites the other one that was an animal. Who was it he was biting? I'm trying to remember.
Cheetah?
I think it may be Cheetah, yeah. He sort of jumps onto Cheetah's back and goes to bite her, and I thought that was a great visual, because cat and dog kind of thing. Basically, Batmite tries to help take Batman and Superman out of the two-dimensional space, but when he does so, he actually takes them to the sixth dimension rather than back to the third dimension, and they're like, what the hell? And he's like, oh, this is where, you know, like, I think Superman figures out, he's like, oh, this is the dimension where all time's happening at once. But this was actually an intentional thing. He didn't make a mistake. Batmite brought them here because this is where the villain comes from. He comes from sixth-dimensional space, so he's here to investigate. And I think this is where they're really having fun with it. Like, just something as simple as Batmite having the big magnifying glass and like his eye being enlarged when he's saying, oh, it's time to do some detective work, and he's all excited about it. That's where the charm of this comes in.
When they were in the 2D space and they're all flat, and he's addressing it, being like, oh, that's why we're all just flat colors now.
Yeah.
I think things like that are what are making this work.
I think I liked how they did this as well, in the sense that within a two-dimensional space, because obviously comics are always two-dimensional, but the way they show it being two-dimensional in the comic space is they have the panels angled and have the art kind of correspond to the angle, as if the paper's been tilted to actually make it feel like it's actually two-dimensional, which is impressive because all comic art's two-dimensional. It's a comic book.
It is, but also you can draw art 3D, right? Not to say it, physically pops the face, but you can draw depth.
Yeah.
Whereas here they intentionally don't draw depth. Everything is intentionally flat. Yeah,
it's flat as well, yeah, for sure. So it really, like, the art goes a long way to really sell that idea. So that's very good. So, it's funny, actually, I'd forgotten what the villain looked like until the end of the issue, because we did see him before, but I'd completely forgotten what he looked like, and then he pops out with his big sort of Joker with green sort of like dread mohawk style hair, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is what this idiot looks like. That said, though, there's a lot of fun to be had throughout this. All the Jimmy like stuff where you've got Elasta Jimmy, you've got Jimmy who steals the belt from the Shazam style guy who like each bit of the belt like is a different power depending on what you touch from different gods. And
Yeah.
Jimmy with 8 arms grabs it and like has all the powers at once. Like you know, just
Yeah, and then by
fun
the
stuff.
end, the point is now that the villain is like, oh, Jimmy, you're Earth's mightiest hero, right? Okay, let's go.
Yeah, what I like about that is it's Mixie who realizes he's like, oh, hey, you just took out all these villains by yourself, Jimmy. And then he's like, uh-oh. Because that's the whole point of this, is the villain wanted to test and see who was the biggest hero so that could be
Yeah, the
the
whole point was, is
challenger.
it Batman or Superman?
Yeah, turns out it's Jimmy Olsen. And here comes Sixth Dimension Joker
Yeah,
Imp. Or
I
what?
like the
Yeah.
idea that he's come out of the sixth dimension because he's bored because everyone's kind of equal there because everything happens at the same time. So now he's almost the definition of big fish in a little pond by coming down dimensions.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I enjoyed this issue as consistently as the last one, which I remembered like having a hoot as like Batman and Superman were having to learn about all this stuff. But I think it's a pretty solid follow up to it, and I'm enjoying this arc way more than I thought I was going to, based on that prologue story from the
Yeah, I was not feeling that prologue.
yeah. But this was a lot of fun. I think having the regular characters around to like be normal and react to it and ground it a bit, it does a lot for it. Uh,
It does,
Also,
yeah.
one of my favorite little moments is I think it was this issue, where so Batmite mentions at one point he must have been daydreaming, and then when Superman's like, "Oh, okay," like Batmite's trying to help. He's actually done something quite good here by bringing us here. Batman just responds with what Batmite said earlier. He's like, "Oh, sorry, I must have been daydreaming," and it does the sort of the icicles on the speech bubble. Like just Batman's being just he's not giving Batmite an inch and like giving him a bit of praise. He's like he's not entertaining it at all, and I thought that was also
No.
entertaining.
Also, I think it's a great bit of layering of like it's a way of showing Batman's being quite literally frosty, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and you show that with that bubble. I think we don't get enough inventive lettering in either of the big two because for the most part they want the lettering to be simple, readable, functional, right? And just Joe, so it's rarely experimental or particularly inventive.
Yeah.
So I think getting just little moments like that stand out more than they probably would in like in an indie book, for example, because most of the time the lettering's fairly safe, not bad, but safe. So just having little things like that to show, oh, he's being frosty here. I think it's clever and it's fun to see.
Yeah, it's a risky proposition though, because I have definitely many a time seen like what's meant to be robotic lettering because it's a robot speaking and being like, this is a chore to read, I hate it. Like,
Yeah.
so there's definitely a risk involved to like being inventive with it, but if you pull it off and it's still nice to read, then by all means go for it.
Definitely. Lettering is it's an unsung art, I think, to a degree that it's hard to really excel. Like I think not I'm saying it's easy to be functional. There's still a craft and a talent to it, but if you could hit this level, you can get consistent work doing this. But to push on to the next level and not lose that readability, that's where it becomes challenging, I think.
Yeah. So no, I think it's a super fun issue. It's entertaining. It's funny at points. Art is pretty solid throughout. Interesting having the two artists on this issue. I could notice the change a little bit, but it wasn't like some massive downgrade or anything like that when it switched from Mora. It felt like because I think the second artist was mostly doing the Batman Superman stuff.
Yes, that's what I think. Yeah,
yeah.
the different dimensions was them. So
Yeah.
second, sixth.
Yeah, which is a nice way to break it up. It feels right to have it look different in that situation.
And I'm glad it kept Mora doing all the action because Mora does some great action, especially when he gets an excuse to basically just draw loads of cool characters, basically here.
Oh, for sure, yeah. He has to be inventive though, because he's doing all these like imp versions of villains, so you can tell he's just having fun with like
and just tons of Jimmy Olsens.
Tons of Jimmy Olsens. Well, that's the thing with Waid. It always feels like Waid's just having fun with all his weird DC knowledge that he has, and he's pulling out. I'm sure some of these imps are new. Don't get me wrong, but all of these Jimmys are definitely references to old Jimmy Olsen stories.
Oh, 100%. It feels a little bit like Like when Grant Morrison gets to do something like that and they just pull random shit out because they have just encyclopedic knowledge of tiny things.
Yep. So there you go. Matt didn't send any thoughts in for the last couple of books. I guess he had to cut off eventually. He's got beds and washing machines to help lift. So what did you rate World's Finest?
I'm gonna be really boring. Give it another 7. But it's a good issue.
Yeah, I don't know. What am I giving it? I don't want to be bored and give it another 8. I feel like, but I don't think it's an 8.5. But is a 7.5 harsh? It may be, because it's pretty solid. I'll go 7.5. I'll go 7.5. I don't know if I quite liked it as much as the other books, but it's fun. It's entertaining. It's a nice light read compared to the other ones.
Yeah,
nice pleasant little jaunt and absurdity.